Welcome to our Facebook Live meeting for preparing your pup for a fear-free Halloween. So the month of October provides a lot of new socialization opportunities for our puppies. We see lots of new decorations, lots of costume opportunities, etc. However, we are using basic skills to navigate through Halloween, even though our puppies have probably not seen many of these items or had these experiences before. So we're just going to be really using a lot of those skills that you have already been working on with your pups. Today's topics are going to include socialization to Halloween decorations, getting your puppy comfortable wearing a costume, and trick-or-treaters at your door. Halloween decorations. So really all Halloween decorations are essentially novel objects, and that's exactly how we're going to treat them. So reviewing from our novel object meeting that we had a few months ago, what is a novel object? That is anything that is new and possibly unusual that your puppy encounters. It is important to remember that a reaction to a novel object is not necessarily a bad thing, because we are actually looking for the recovery to the novel object. So your puppy might startle at something initially, but then when they reapproach it, do they relax? They're able to approach it easily and that sort of thing. Halloween provides many novel object experiences, and some of those include moving or talking decorations. You have the items in the yards that blow up, the big blow up items that have the big motors in the back as well, so they make noise in that sense. And also humans wearing costumes. Body language your pup may demonstrate when they are having maybe a little bit of a reaction to the decorations. They might compress their body, meaning that they will kind of crouch down to the ground, or they might make their body smaller, leaning away from the item. You might see tongue flicking, meaning that you haven't just given a treat and they're flicking their tongue. Ears back and pinned back to their head very tightly. Pup might be slow to approach. They might also approach a little bit, but then still keep that distance. You'll see that a lot of times the distance will decrease gradually as the pup explores the item and you give them more time. They will be jumpy a lot of times. They might jump at something. Hackled fur, meaning that the fur is up on the back and usually towards the base of the tail. And a couple other things. There's activation as well. It might excite a dog to where they lose fine motor control or start to take treats much harder. So how do I help my puppy when he's uncertain about a novel object? The first and big key thing is to do not drag your puppy to the item. We do not want to pressure the puppy with food to move towards the item. Both of those things, you want to think about if you're really scared of something, you would not want to be pulled towards that. That would not make you feel any better and any less afraid. And if somebody, if you're scared of a haunted house, for example, and somebody tells you, leads you through the haunted house with $100 bill, you might follow it, but you may not be any less afraid by the time you get out of the haunted house with everything jumping out at you. You want to allow the puppy to have the full length of leash to decide how close or far they want to be from the object. So you can move closer to the object, but keep that leash nice and loose and long. And your puppy may choose to stay 6 feet away from the object, and that's totally fine. You don't want to coddle your puppy. You want to be matter of fact and show that there's no need for concern. So you might just tap it and say, look at that statue, look at that item. You don't want to say, oh, it's okay, you're fine. That's what we mean by coddling. If it's safe to do so, you want to let your puppy have time to explore the object. Hopefully with most of these decorations that you encounter, costumes, etc., you are going to be able to let the puppy check those out. You can approach the item and then let the puppy see you touch or interact with the item, but still allow them to keep that distance with their leash. Again, keeping that leash nice and loose. But when you touch it or you turn it on or you interact with it, it shows the pup that, hey, there's nothing really to be afraid of. If your pup does approach on their own, you can give gentle praise or treats after the puppy has approached. So you should not use the food to pressure your puppy to move towards the item, but instead, once the pup has approached on their own, you can definitely give treats for that. Approaching from different angles is very helpful, especially with Halloween items. If they have like a face or something that looks sort of like a face, your puppy might feel more comfortable approaching it from behind at first and checking it out that way, and then coming around to the front. You can also try walking away from the item and reapproach it later. Now we are going to watch a little bit of a montage of a couple of puppies who helped us out. We went to the Spirit of Halloween store. Many of you probably have seen those in your area. And they have a lot of items in their store that make noise and move and that sort of thing. And then we had somebody who did find a neighborhood house that already had all of their Halloween decorations up and let the pup explore there as well. I did not include the sound on this, especially in the Spirit of Halloween store. Unfortunately, there were so many background noises that it was a little bit difficult to listen to. So it is set to just music. If you don't enjoy the music, you can always mute your computer until the video is over. This particular video uses music throughout the video. It doesn't use any words, spoken words. So with Halloween decorations, making sure your pup is comfortable is key to enjoying this particular month. The video that we just watched, we saw several pups who were pretty comfortable overall checking out these different items. They might have had moments where they backed away or gave some other sort of body language that showed that they were not comfortable, but for the most part, they were pretty relaxed about most of the items that they saw. However, there are going to be times when your puppy, it may be pretty easy to misinterpret what your puppy is feeling. Oftentimes, when we have dogs that are activated under stress, meaning maybe they're more moving around a lot more, faster movements, taking treats hard, a lot of times people will say, oh, my puppy is just excited to see this singing skeleton. And then you have the other side of that, which is inhibition under stress. And this is, we talked about some very apparent inhibited behaviors like compression, ears back, and that sort of thing. But there's also that part where your dog just stays right beside you. And what you might be thinking is, my puppy is especially obedient around these new items, doing really well with our impulse control. So I'm going to show you guys some video clips. We have Eddie, and he's a black male lab, and he is pretty comfortable with most of the items that we show him. Then we have Sabrina. She's a yellow female lab. And she is my transferred pup that is our pet now. And she did get transferred. One of her main reasons for being transferred was because she is a little bit, she does have an inhibition and concern about novel objects. But you will see in the videos that we have her showing some inhibition by sitting beside her handler. One of my puppy raisers handled her for me. She's sitting beside my puppy raiser and looks kind of almost like she's being obedient, but rather what's really happening is with the particular item that we show her, I believe both are sort of like ghosts on little hangers. The first one, she is sitting beside my razor, and some people might say, oh, look how nicely she's sitting beside her. But in reality, what she's doing is she's kind of glancing at the item, glancing back at her handler, and just kind of doing that. If I don't look at it, then it doesn't exist, then it's not there. And then we picked up a different ghost on a hanger, and this one had a face and looked a little more human-like. So you will see that she gets activated by this one. Again, she is, might be, to the untrained eye, so to speak, you might think that she is just really excited to see this item. But then I will show you too what she looks like afterwards. Directly afterwards, she's panting very shallow. Her panting is very shallow. Her mouth is open really wide. Ears are back. And really, she's not enjoying it particularly very much. More about me. You gonna come over here?
kind
Yeah,
of ignore
she
it, it'll
almost
go away.
displacement,
yeah,
like looking at you for.
right.
If you come up to it with the off and just touch it, I want to see what she does. If you walk up to it. There you go, girl. Back up just a little bit. Turn it back on. No, go bite it, please. Look at it a little bit.
She's doing ignore it, it'll go away.
Yeah.
I don't want to touch it.
Yeah. Has more of a face. Let's go fart. She's getting ready. She's like, her mouth is like. Like it would last longer like that guy did. Hey, Sabrina. Good girl. Introducing Halloween costumes to your puppy. So why do we even have the puppies wear costumes? Some people might say, oh, I don't want my puppy to feel silly or something like that. However, there are actual advantages for us to introduce our costumes to our pups. They don't have to be, really extensive costumes. It could just be, at home, even a t-shirt, scarves, things like that. The first advantage would be body handling in general. By putting items on your puppy, you are going to have them comfortable with body handling and practice that body handling to prepare them to have something on their body. Additionally, they're going to eventually be wearing their, guide dog or service dog harness. And so that might be a little bit different feeling than their puppy coat right now. It's also just an unusual experience, and we want to present our pups with novel experiences quite frequently. So being introduced to costume is just, in general, just a novel experience. And another reason for having our pups wear costumes is for possible medical equipment they might have to be exposed to in the future. And by this, I mean things like wearing an e-collar when they're spayed or neutered. Let's say they get an injury at some point in their life and they have to wear a bandage or a cast. Again, it's just having those items on their body and getting them used to that, sort of putting that into their learning library of, oh, it's fine to have things on my body. A couple quick tips and general tips for, picking out costumes. You definitely want to check the fit. Don't purchase a costume when your dog is 4 months old and expect it to be able to still wear that same costume the following year. You also want to only have your puppies wearing the costumes for a short time. We're not asking that you keep your puppy in their costume all day long, but maybe just for the length of taking a few photos. Or I do believe some puppy raisers in their neighborhoods sometimes have Halloween parades, little Halloween parades within their neighborhood, and something like that where your pup is just walking the length of your street and wearing their costume during that time. You want to consider what type of costume your puppy will likely tolerate. Again, you don't want to purchase something that has a lot of parts to it if you know that your puppy is not super comfortable with body handling. You want to pick something out that you think your dog is going to wear with a little bit of practice and exposure. So there's going to be costumes where you're going to use, it's only the head, or it's only a body piece that almost is like a puppy coat. Something that might even include something on their legs or close down to their feet. Again, you're going to want to just sort of consider what your puppy right now will tolerate. Allow the puppy, when we're starting to show our puppy our costumes, you want to allow the puppy to check out the costume. So let the puppy sniff the costume, all sides of it, all pieces of it. Open and close fasteners before putting on pup. 1, so that you understand how it works. But 2, if your fasteners make an unusual noise, such as Velcro, large pieces of Velcro, you want to make sure that your puppy has heard that several times before it's on their body, and they feel like it's too close to their body and they're uncomfortable. We're going to build gradually to wearing the costume. Lay the open costume on the pup and reward. So if you have a piece that is sort of like the puppy coat, for example, instead of fastening it, you're just going to lay it unfastened on the pup's back, for example, or on their head if it's like a hood or a headpiece. Fasten one part and then reward. That would be your next step, is to then fasten one part of it and reward. You may only choose to fasten very loosely before moving tighter, and you'll see that I do this with a headpiece costume in a moment. If you have multiple pieces, you want to start with one piece and then build out for each additional piece. So if it's a main piece that goes on the body, kind of like a puppy coat, then you're going to want to work on that first. And then, laying it on their back and then practicing fastening it and unfastening it. Then after the puppy's comfortable with that, maybe then you move to the part that goes on their head, for example. And then don't forget that you want to practice whatever you plan on doing, whatever you plan on doing with your pup in that costume. If you want your pup to walk down the length of your street, you might want to walk your pup around your house or your yard for a little bit in their costume so they feel what that feels like when it's moving on their body. If you want your puppy to do some cues and do a sit stay or a down stay, then you want to, so that you can take some photos, you might want to practice that before you actually pull out your camera and treats and all that kind of stuff. So we are going to watch a video that I did with Eve. She has 2 costumes that she is getting socialized to. The first one is just a head-only costume. It looks like a slice of watermelon. And you will see that I even ask her to do a harness on with that. You can always do that with the head pieces. And then the second costume is a stingray costume, and it's a body piece, and then there's a head piece. You may notice that a couple of things you may notice. One, Eve is panting a bit in this video. It is because I took her outside to run around ahead of time so that she would be nice and calm for our video. And then the second thing is, when I do the headpiece for the stingray, you'll see that I initially tried to pull her ears through the little openings once she's comfortable with it on her head, but it doesn't really reach. So I'm going to actually return this costume because it does not correctly fit her overall, both pieces. So again, you want to check that fit. All right, so we'll go ahead and watch this video.
Yeah, good girl. Good job, Evie. Good girl. Good girl. Harness on. Yeah.
girl. All right, sit. Good girl. Good job, Evie. Good job. Good girl. You tighten her up a little? Nice job. Good girl. Stay. Good girl. All right, nice job. Girl. Girl. Yes. Good girl. Good girl, Kara. Cool. Good girl. Good job. Come, Evie. Stand. Oh. Okay. Good girl. Good girl. Good job. Good job. Good girl. Door manners for trick-or-treating. Our goal here is that our puppy is going to be calm and under control when people come to the door. This could be for a variety of reasons, and especially because we may not have trick-or-treaters this year because it is 2020 and everything is being canceled. However, obviously, we have themed this particular set of door manners to trick-or-treating because this is our Halloween meeting. Door manners are important no matter the purpose. So this is not just about trick-or-treaters. This is about a delivery person coming to your door, a neighbor coming to your door to borrow something. Just in general, your dog learning that they need to be calm and under control when you do open that door. That could definitely be a huge safety issue for your puppy as well. The big thing is you want to practice this before you need it. If you wait until, for example, Halloween evening and you suddenly start trying to practice it then, that's when you're not going to have as much success. You're going to cause your dog to have to sort of rush through the steps and really not let it set in for your pup. You want to do setups, and we will show a video here in just a few minutes. It's best to enlist a helper, and you'll see why in a minute in our video, but essentially I start out without a helper by just having my dog do a sit stay, for example, and approaching my door, messing with the door handle and that sort of thing. Then my helper, who happens to be my husband in this video, he will start to work with me on knocking on the door, saying things as I open the door and that sort of thing. You will want to decide how you want to communicate with your helper. Maybe it is, you both have your cell phones and you text a little thing to say knock or something like that. I was using my phone to videotape the video. So you will see that we actually have mostly a frosted glass door. So I kind of wave at my husband to let him know that we are ready to have him knock on the door. You want to practice in small slices. So what that means is breaking down that whole process. Each part you want to practice. So you'll see in a moment, at first, I chose to do a sit stay with my dog. There's other things you could sort of work in there. If you'd rather have your dog sit right beside you as you open the door, that's fine as well. If you would rather have your dog do a place over to the side, you could always do that as well. There is no right or wrong way to do the door manners. It's just a matter of making sure your dog is calm. So I did do sit stay with my particular set of door manners with Eve. But you'll see that we broke down the whole process. So at first it's going to be just sit stay while I walk halfway to the door and back. Sit stay while I touch the handle and walk back. Sit stay while my person knocks on the door and reward that, etc. So you just keep building up from there. There's no correct way to break it down. You just want to take it slow. If your puppy is not successful, you could either go back a step and practice that step more, and then move on when your pup has that step really solid, or you could practice, or you could thin slice it even more. So let's say you're trying to go do a sit stay with your dog, and you're trying to walk all the way to your door, and every time you get to your door, your dog gets up. So maybe instead of walking all the way to your door, you only walk 2 steps towards the door and come back to your pup. And then when they have that, you can go 3 steps towards your door and come back. So you could just really thin slice it and just think about, how can I make this easier for my puppy to be successful? But yet at the same time, eventually, gradually expand their skills. So you do want to repeat sections that are more difficult for your puppy. And I do demo that in the video. So initially, when the knock first happens, I found that that was probably something that was going to be more difficult for her to hold that sit stay with, knowing that somebody was at the door and was knocking at the door. With door manners, you are still practicing those 3 Ds: distance, distraction, and duration. Remember that when we are practicing the 3 Ds, you want to build one at a time. So do your best with that. You're going to build gradually. So the video I'm going to show you may take place typically over several days or several weeks. It just really depends on your puppy and their skills. And as you introduce a new distraction, you want to go back a few steps. So as you introduce somebody knocking on the door, instead of opening the door really wide and talking to them, you want to step back and say, okay, when this person knocks on the door, I'm just going to reward for the dog maintaining their sit, or I'm going to take a couple steps forward and come back. And if you're going to introduce something such as a candy dish, then, let your puppy check out the candy dish before you start. And now that you added that new distraction in, go back a few steps and build up again. All right, so we're going to go ahead and take a look at Eve working on her door manners for trick-or-treaters. Stay. Hello. Stay. Hello, how are you? Yes. Sit. Stay. Hello. Yes. Good girl. Sit. Good girl. Stay. Hello. Good girl. Yes. Stay. Stay. You're welcome. Yes. Good girl. Stay. There you go. You're welcome. Yes. So we hope that you guys enjoyed today's presentation. We're going to do some live Q&A here in just a second, but we wanted to say happy Halloween, and we wish you a happy and safe Halloween with your puppy. All right, everybody. Thanks again for attending our Facebook Live meeting today. Before we get started with Q&A, I just wanted to give a big thank you to some people that volunteered to work with me on these videos. First of all, Alyssa and her puppy Rose. They were in the beginning at the Halloween store. Kate Dumity, who handled Sabrina and Eddie for me at Lowe's, and Nancy Hester, who was helping us switch dogs at Lowe's. And also Eddie to his razors for loaning him out. And I did not get the name of the pup that Laura worked with. I believe they're in North Carolina, but thank you to them as well. So a few people have asked about the ages of all the dogs. Rose at the Halloween store, she's 13 months old. Sabrina, Yellow Lab, she's about 14 months old. Eddie, who was in the same video as Sabrina, he's the Black Lab, he's about 6 months old. And Eve is 22 months. She'll be 2 on Thanksgiving this year. All right, so I'm going to go through a few questions that I definitely saw. And so the first one from Paula a little bit ago in the presentation was, is rapid tail wagging a sign of discomfort? Can that be a sign? And yes, it definitely can be that rapid tail wag, especially if you just look at your dog, you know your dog and what their normal wag looks like. So you're going to see maybe a difference of the tail wag being a little more quick than normal. But it often is a sign of discomfort when that tail wag is really low as well. So if you have a really low rapid tail wag, then that is pretty much a sure sign that they're a little bit unsure of whatever you're presenting them. Christine asked, has Eve worn those costumes before? And I did answer on the comments. She has not worn those specific costumes. However, being that she's one of my puppies, and I often do photos for all different types of holidays with them wearing different costumes. Eve has worn many costumes in the past. So Yes, we did rush her through sort of all the steps to show you on the presentation what it should look like, but definitely take some time to let your puppy um, go through all the steps, especially if they've never worn any sort of costumes before. So if you plan on having your puppy wear a costume for this Halloween for photos or a little neighborhood parade, something like that, I would go ahead and start pretty much now to socializing them to costumes. Even if it's not the costume, it'd be best if it was the costume they're going to wear. But even now, you can just start doing things like scarves around their necks and things like that. But just following those steps, really fleshing it out in small steps, small slices. And then, is the process same for the doors? This is from Mickey. Is the process same for the doors if it opens from the left side and the puppy can see outside? So again, it really depends on your door and also whatever your household allows for you to be most comfortable with. So somebody else asked if we use place, and I do believe I said that in the in at some point during the presentation that you could use place, or you could choose to have your puppy sit directly beside you. You could have your puppy choose to even do a switch if you wanted and have them sit after that switch. They just need to know they're not going to go out the door for the switch. They're just going to stay where they are, and then they're going to follow you backwards after the door closes. But the main process is just that the main process is that you're just breaking it down into thin slices, whether it's costumes, whether it's the door, it doesn't matter. If you go back and review both the costume and the door ones, for example, you'll see that, for example, the door, again, I suspected that Eve might get up more with the door being knocked on versus me just stepping towards the door. So you'll see that I repeated, for example, her sitting at the door, her sitting from a distance while someone knocked on the door. Again, it's just however you want to break it down is the best way and whatever makes sense for your door. All right, so I'm going to go through, and those are the ones I wrote down ahead of time. My coworkers are texting me things as well. So again, did all this happen in one sitting or broken up in several sessions? I'm not sure if that person meant the costumes or the door. This was in one session for Eve, but she has done some of this before. So, and that's why I used Eve over Sabrina because Eve is almost 2. She's a year older than Sabrina. And so I have worked with her more on this when I was raising her. So whether it's the costumes or the door, I'm not sure, but while my particular videos were all one session, yes, they were all within, 20, 30 minutes session. Eve has worked on this before. Let's see. Do you find the puppy reacts more to a ringing doorbell or a knock? It really depends. Depends on what you have and what you answer to the most and what happens the most in your house. My house has no doorbell. So we have a ring doorbell, a ring camera, but the doorbell is very quiet and people don't usually use it. They actually don't see it and they tend to knock on our door. We definitely see our dogs react more to people knocking on the door. But again, it just depends on what happens in your house the most. So if people typically ring your doorbell and that's what you answer, then your dog is probably going to realize that that ringing doorbell means that there is someone at the door. So it really just depends. Let's see. How do you deal with, from Linda, how do you deal with barking dogs when the door is knocked on? So you could do a few things. You could sort of counter condition, and that would definitely be something to talk to your AC and your RM about, where you could even just have people practice knocking on the door and then not responding, et cetera, et cetera. It would depend on how severe your dog is barking. It would also depend on what happens if you have multiple dogs in the house. Probably a little bit too specific. I would have lots of questions for you if I was working with you directly right now. So I would suggest probably working with your RM or your AC if your dog does bark when the door is knocked on. It's more about typically why dogs are barking is because they know that when somebody knocks on the door, you get up and they go, oh, and there's somebody there. That's a lot of times. Additionally, we need to know if it's suspicious barking, alert suspicious type barking, or is it just I'm getting excited because somebody's knocking on the door. And also don't forget to during if you do have trick-or-treaters in your neighborhood this year or even next year and you're raising a puppy, if you feel like that is something that's stressful for your dog, you can always put your dog's crate in a back room, put the TV on or radio on, give your dog a filled Kong or a really good Nylabone, and let them relax and not do the doors. You don't have to do, you do not have to bring your dog to the door if you are having trick-or-treaters. All right, so there was, let's see. And Clarice gave the suggestion that if you don't have a person to knock on your door, you can record that and set up a Bluetooth speaker to sound like it. And that's definitely something you can do. Again, a lot of repetition of this in general will help. And doing a lot of presentation on, sorry, not presentation. I read the word presentation. Doing a lot of practice and repetition, that's what I meant to say, of working on doors is going to be how you're going to get that better and better with dogs barking. I find that most dogs tend to not bark if they're right there with you on leash and somebody knocks on your door and you're standing right there. So that might be a place to start as well. But again, you want to definitely talk to your AC or your RM. All right. I'm looking for any other questions. All right. I'm not seeing any more questions. So again, thank you everybody for joining us today. And we hope that you have again, happy Halloween. And we will see you guys next time. Thanks so much.